7, unknown angle problems. On day 7, unknown angle problems, you're going to be asked to find missing variables in the picture. We have a set of pieces of information here in this text box, which are things that we have used throughout this unit. Angles that form a line or are supplementary add to 180. Angles in a triangle add to 180. Angles that form a circle or angles around a point add to 360. Vertical angles are congruent. Just a little reminder, vertical angles are the angles that you have across from each other when two lines cross. And then the last three, which are dependent on lines being parallel. If the lines are parallel, alternate interior angles are congruent, corresponding angles are congruent, and same side interior angles are supplementary. We also have the rule about alternate exterior angles being congruent, and it is not on our list today. Not that you can't use it, but just that it doesn't show up a lot. So in our directions, it says find the value of all the missing variables. We can see in the first picture, 3 of the angles have representations on them, 40, 36, and then one that's labeled C as our missing variable. AB is a straight line, and they're telling us that this vertical line here comes down and is perpendicular to AB. If it's perpendicular on one side, it's also perpendicular on the other, which means that these 3 angles that we have here are taking up the space of 90 degrees. So 40 plus 36 plus C is going to equal 90 degrees. So that's going to be 76 plus C equals 90 degrees, or C is just 14. You'll notice that I did explain where the equation came from. I'm not spending time talking about how to do that algebra. That should be something that you're very comfortable with at this point in time. When you take a look at question 2, oftentimes kids mistake that question as being vertical angles. Vertical angles only exist if there's 2 straight lines that cross. In this particular case, we do not have 2 straight lines that cross, so the only thing we can say is that these 4 angles go around this point in a circle, so those 4 angles, therefore, will end up adding to 360. So sometimes that happens where we're going to actually take the angles and add to 360. So this is plus 85 plus x plus 35 equals 360. So 3x plus 120 equals 360. 3x equals 240 when I subtract, and I end up getting that x is 80. And in this case, they did ask me to find the missing variable, so that is my final answer. In question 3, what ends up happening in this question is we do have straight lines that cross. So in this particular case, we do have vertical angles that exist here. There's actually 3 sets of them. And my 3 sets of vertical angles are the one set that involves the x, the one set that involves the right angle, and the other set that involves the 4x minus 10. So this angle being congruent to this angle. Now, if I take this information and I look at these 3 angles, and you can pick to look at any 3 angles you want, those 3 angles happen to sit on that straight line. There's other straight lines that the angles sit on as well. But when I look at it this way, I know I have 90 degrees here from the right angle. So I know that I have 90 plus the x plus the 4x minus 10, and they sit on a straight line, so that's going to equal 180 degrees. So that's the equation that I'm going to use in this case. So I have 5x plus 80 when I combine like terms equals 180. 5x equals 100. And then x is 20. Continuing on, if you look at question 4, in question 4 we have 2 straight lines that are crossing. So one of the things that we know if 2 straight lines cross is that we have vertical angles that are equal to each other. So one of my equations that I could write would be that 2x is equal to y minus x. The vertical angles are equal. As soon as I write that down, I realize that I have 2 variables in there. As soon as I know that I have 2 variables, it means that to solve, I'm going to have 2 equations. And then from those 2 equations, we're going back to your algebra class, and we solve either using substitution or elimination. So that math that you did last year turns out to be important again this year. So my first equation is what I'm going to use to set the vertical angles equal to each other. The other equation that I'm choosing to use, and you can do whichever one you want, is I'm going to look at this straight line and look at these two angles that make it up. So my y plus x angle plus my y minus x angle has to add to 180. So those are the two equations that I'm going to use. If I'm working with the second equation, the green one, notice that the plus x and minus x cancels out, so I get 2y equals 180. I actually don't even have to do a whole big process with substitution or elimination because it sets up to be substitution automatically. The x's, elimination automatically, the x's cancel out. So when I go through now and solve, I find out that y is 90. Now I have to go back to the other equation and put in a y for 90 in this equation. So I end up with 2x equals 90 minus x. I'm going to add x to bring this over to be 3x equals 90. And then when I divide by 3, I get that x is 30. So sometimes when you're working on these questions, do not be surprised if you end up having two variables and you have to set up a system of equations in order to solve. If we move on to the next question, question 5, it's a little easier than the one we just did. When I look at this, I immediately see that there are two straight lines that cross AB and CD do intersect, which means that this 68-degree angle should be equal to this angle over here. This angle over here is made up of two parts, but those two parts still add to 68 degrees. So that means that my 4x minus 2 plus 30 is going to equal 68. So this is 4x plus 28 equals 68. 4x equals 40. And then I end up getting that x is 10. To figure out the y value, what I'm going to work with is the fact that I realize that I have supplements. And with the supplements, 68 and y are supplementary because they sit on this straight line. So that means that 68 plus y has to equal 180, minus 68 from both sides, and I get 112. So the y value is 112. In this case, there were two variables, but I was able to solve for both of them separately because what was going on with x was not affected by what was going on with y. So I solved x separately and then y, unlike question 4 where they were dependent on each other. So you had to go back and find one in order to find the other. I'm going to give you a couple minutes on your own here to pause the video, take a couple minutes and see what you can do with questions 6 and 7. So take a couple minutes, pause the video, see what you can do on your own. So I went and took a look at my picture. I realized I do have a straight line, and I have these three angles here, here, and here that make up that straight line. So the 2x plus 1 plus 3x plus 10 plus 8 9x plus 10 has to equal 180. When I got to that point, I went in and combined like terms. So I combined those two and got the 5x. I combined the 1, the 10, and the 10 and got 21. And then in my next step, I actually subtracted the 21 and moved it to the other side. I could have written the next line as 5 and 8 9ths x, but that's not especially friendly. So what I did is I said I sure would love to get rid of that denominator. I'm going to multiply everything in here by 9. So 9 times 5 gives me 45. 9 times 8 9ths gives me 8. 9 times 159 gives me this. I combined the 45 and 8 and got 53, divided by 53, and this is my x value. So the algebra in there was a little sticky. Not terrible, but some of you I know don't like working with those fractions. Best way to clear a fraction is to multiply by the least common denominator. From here, when I go back and I'm looking at the y values, what I notice is that I have straight lines that cross to give me the 3x plus 10 angle and this combination of y plus 3. Because x is 27, I can figure out how big this angle is, which turns out to be 91 degrees. If this angle is 91 degrees, then these two must equal 91 degrees. So my equation becomes y plus y minus 3 equals 91. 2y equals 94. And y then, when I divide, is 47. The x and y could be found separately. We did not have one dependent on the other. For question 7, I am able to transpose some information. In other words, this x minus 10 right here is the same as this angle because they're vertical angles, so this is x minus 10. When I do that, I realize that these three angles add to 180 because they sit on a straight line. So I'm going to set up my equation exactly that way. 3x plus 6 plus x minus 10 plus x minus 11 has to equal 180. And then I'm going to solve that equation. And I end up with an x value of 39. Once I know that x is 39, if I go back to look and see how the x and y's are related, this angle and this angle are equal to each other because they're vertical angles. And now that I know that x is 39, I can figure out how big this angle is. Which is 123 degrees. And if that's 123 degrees, then this angle y must also equal 123 degrees. So I'm able to find that missing angle measure basically in just one step by substituting the the x value of 39 into its vertical angle. As we go on to the next page, you will notice on the next page we're talking about something called auxiliary lines. Auxiliary lines are going to be lines that are considered to be helpful lines. That's pretty much what auxiliary means. And the thing about auxiliary lines is that they don't come in the picture. You have to draw your own. Sometimes you need them and sometimes you don't. So what I'm going to point out to you is that in this little picture on the right-hand side over here, you can see that they've drawn this auxiliary line going right through the middle here. And the reason why they did that is because the question was asking them to find angle W. And if you take a look at where angle W is, it's this angle that's right here. There's no way to find that one angle in just one step. But by drawing in the auxiliary line, what ends up happening is we have this line that's parallel to this line. Angle of 41 degrees, and this part that they called angle E are alternate interior angles. So angle E is really going to be 41 degrees also, because if those lines are parallel, the alternate interior angles are congruent. If that's not something that you can see, you may need to turn it so that your parallel lines are going horizontally in front of you. And then, based on the way that the auxiliary line was drawn, it's also drawn parallel to this, which means that angle F and 35 are alternate interior angles, which means angle F is equal to 35 degrees. Therefore, angle W, the original angle that they were asking you to find, this whole angle, is really nothing more than what you get when you take the 41 and 35 and you add them together. So in this case, angle W would be 76 degrees. So the auxiliary line is going to help you be able to figure out what you need. Some questions you have to have it, some you don't. So in question 8, they're asking us to find the unknown angles that are labeled. You can see in 8, they want us to find angle D. Angle D is not related to the 35-degree angle at all. One of the things that I've learned that can be helpful to allow you to see exactly what's going on in this picture is to make your parallel lines and your transversal go a little further. So we have that top parallel line, and then we have the bottom parallel line. And sometimes if you make your transversal go a little longer, it makes it a little easier to see. In this particular case, if I take a look at this 35-degree angle, this angle here is also 35 degrees because they're alternate interior angles. Oftentimes, alternate interior angles make this Z-type shape. It's backwards, upside down sometimes, but you see a Z shape. And if one of the angles is 35, so is the other. So this angle is 35. And then for angle D, we can notice in our picture that angle D and the 35-degree angle basically sit on that straight line that was the transversal. So that means that angle D plus 35 degrees is going to equal 180. So that angle D is going to be 145 when I subtract. The lines that I drew or extended in this picture are not really auxiliary lines, but it is still helpful to make them longer. So they're not auxiliary lines because they existed to begin with. I just made them a little bit longer. In question 9, you'll notice that there's only one set of parallel lines. That's these two that are here and here. I am asked to find some missing angles, though. With those parallel lines, if I put my focus on one of the transversals, let's suppose this transversal, if this angle is 54, angle E will be 54 as well because it is an alternate interior angle. So angle E is very easy to find. Angle F is on a different transversal. Angle F is on this transversal. And so is the 112. So this 112 that's right here is not directly related to angle F, but that 12 and what I'm going to call angle G, just to make life easy, angle G and angle 112 are supplementary. So that means that if I do 180 minus 112, I will get 68 degrees for angle G. And angle F and angle G are alternate interior to each other. So that means that angle F must also be 68 degrees. Question 10 is one of the questions where you have to draw your own auxiliary line. In this particular picture, angle G is not related to either the top or the bottom parallel lines because it sits on a crooked transversal. So in this case, what we need to do is draw in an auxiliary line that actually splits angle G into two parts. So we're going to take it and split it into part A and part B. So what we know is angle G is really equal to angle A plus angle B. And now with that auxiliary line drawn in, I can focus on the upper parallel lines. And if the one at the top is 144, the one that's up here, the one that's here is a same side interior. So angle A is going to be a same side interior. It's supplementary. 180 minus 144 will give me 36. And if I focus on the bottom parallel lines, let me get a different color here. We'll do green. The bottom parallel lines, this one and this one, angle B is an alternate interior angle to angle 56 degrees. So because they're alternate interior angles, they're congruent. So angle B is 56. And then in the end, I need to go back and say, well, I was really asked to find this angle G. So angle G is those two angles added together, 36 plus 56, which gives me 92. So angle G, all total, made up of A plus B, is 92 degrees. Please take a minute and do question 11 on your own. In question 11, because angle H is formed by a crooked transversal passing between two parallel lines, I drew in the orange auxiliary line. It's drawn so that it is parallel to the two given parallel lines. And it has to pass through the vertex at H. When I draw that in, it splits the angle at H into two parts that are not necessarily equal. And from there, Angle A is a same side interior to 162, leaving me 18 degrees because they're supplementary. Angle B is a same side interior to 98, subtracting from 180 leaves me 82. And when I go back in my final step, angle H is a combination of angle A plus angle B, which will give me 100 degrees. In question 12, we also need to draw an auxiliary line. So in question 12, for my auxiliary line, I've got a bent transversal again, creating angle I. Here's going to be my auxiliary line. This may be one of those kind of questions where you want to go back and extend your already parallel lines. It might make it a little easier to see. So maybe you want to draw these a little longer. When I do this, one of the things that I notice is what I'm going to call angle A here is 180 minus 129, which gives me 51 degrees, because angle A and 129 sit on a straight line. And then angle A is related to angle B because it's alternate interior, so angle B is also 51. For the 117, I'm going to compare it to angle C, which is right here. They sit on a straight line. So in this case, angle C is 180 minus 117, which gives me 53. Angle C and what I'll call angle D are congruent to each other because they're corresponding angles on the top and bottom parallel lines. So it is also 53. Angle I in the end is equal to angle B plus angle D, and if I add the 53 and the 51, I end up with 104. So for question 13, I'm going to erase a little bit of my work from question 12, just so we have enough room to be able to finish that. In question 13, please notice that there are some lines that are parallel. So in here, with the lines that are parallel, if this is 92 degrees, so is this. You might need to extend the parallel lines. Alternate interior angles. So I have that angle J is equal to 92 degrees. I also know that angle M and angle of 46 degrees are alternate interior. So angle M is also equal to 46 degrees. And then to figure out angle K, I have two options. I can either say that these three angles add to 180, or I can say that the angles in this triangle add to 180. In either case, however you look at it, I have 92 plus 46 plus angle K being equal to 180. So that's 138 plus angle K equals 180, which means in the end, angle K is equal to 42 degrees. In question 14, 14 has two sets of parallel lines. It's a little bit difficult to see, but with the two sets of parallel lines, if you take a, actually you might even want to draw these in. If you take a look, we have this line parallel to this line, which means I might want to keep this going. You don't have to, but you might want to. Because what they want you to notice is that in this picture, this 122 degree angle and this angle that's here are alternate interior. So the 122 has to be equal to the 72 plus D. When I minus the 72, I find out that D is 50 degrees. In addition, there's another set of parallel lines that are here. That's this set, here and here. I'm going to extend the parallel lines, extend the transversal, and this angle E and this angle D, which is 50 degrees, are alternate interior angles. So they're congruent. So that means that I know that angle E is also equal to 50 degrees. You might have to turn your paper. As I'm standing here, I see myself turning my head to see. And remember, with alternate interior angles, you have sort of that Z shape, which helps you be able to see what's going on. In question 15, I'm going to move on to 15 now. In question 15, please notice that they're asking us to give justification or reasons for each step of my work. This is very typical on the Common Core exam. They want you to do some math and then explain what you did. So this is really our first time of going through and doing this. What I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to start with working on the parallel lines. And with these parallel lines, if I focus on this transversal right here, this 37 degrees and this angle right here are equal to each other because they're alternate interior angles. So I'm going to call that angle A. And I'm going to write down that I know that angle A is also equal to 37 degrees because, so here's my because, my reason why, if lines are parallel, alternate interior angles are congruent. So I am doing this by saying in this area, here's what I know, here's the reason why I know it. So I find out that A is 37 degrees. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually focus my attention on the triangle that's here, because now inside this triangle, I know two of the angle measures, and if I call this angle B, I know that between the 37 degrees plus the 44 degrees plus angle B, the angles of a triangle have to add to 180. So this gives me 81 plus B equals 180. When I minus B from both sides, I get 99 degrees. So angle B turns out to be 99 degrees. The reason why I know that, my because statement, is because angles of a triangle, I'll put angles in a triangle, sum to 180. And I'm getting these reasons from up above in that initial text box that we had up above. And then I have one more step that I'm going to do here. And my one last step is going to say what I know about angle N and angle B. They sit on a straight line, so that means that angle N plus angle B of 99 has to equal 180. Minus 99 from both sides, and I get angle 81 degrees. So angle N, the final angle that I was looking for, is 81 degrees. I have to give a reason on why I did that, and I'm going to put the angles that form a line add to 180 degrees. On your homework, you don't need to write a reason for every single thing that you do, only when the directions tell you. So on this particular question, they told me to do that. So I went through and I did that. If they don't tell me, like in the previous questions, then I don't have to write down my reasons why. I just have to do the math.